When you think of Boston, a lot of things probably come to mind. You've got the American Revolution, ivy-covered universities, legendary sports teams. But the real story of Boston, the one that's truly incredible, is its constant radical reinvention. It's this epic tale of transformation, of a city that has basically died and been reborn over and over again.
So that's the big question, right? How did this happen? How did a small, cramped patch of land, originally just a tiny peninsula, become the place that would kickstart a revolution and then, centuries later, pioneer the future of tech and medicine? Well, that's the wild story we're going to unpack.
And the answer, as it turns out, is this fascinating mix of two key things. First, a really powerful guiding vision that was there from the very beginning. And second, an unbelievable amount of just sheer physical will, literally creating new land where there used to be nothing but water.
To really get Boston, you have to go way back. The story kicks off in the 17th century, not with a city, but with a piece of land called the Shawmut Peninsula, and a group of settlers who had a very powerful idea.
Okay, so picture this. It's 1630. Puritan settlers, led by John Winthrop, show up with this grand ambition. They wanted to build a city upon a hill, a kind of shining example of their ideals for the whole world to see. They weren't just building houses, they were trying to build a new kind of society. And at the heart of that idea were community, civic duty, and maybe most importantly, education.
And what's really amazing is how fast that vision became a reality. Within just a handful of years, they established the entire nation's first public park, Boston Common, and its very first public school, Boston Latin. These weren't just afterthoughts, they were foundational. They were literally cementing Boston's identity as an intellectual and civic hub from its very first decade.
All right, let's jump forward about 100 years. By the mid-1700s, that independent, intellectual spirit was on a collision course with the British Empire. Boston's economy was actually struggling, falling behind rivals like New York and Philly. And that financial stress, mixed with Britain trying to slap on new taxes, created an absolute perfect storm.
And man, things just blew up from there with shocking speed. You had protests over the Stamp Act, which then led to the bloodshed of the Boston Massacre. Then the defiant Boston Tea Party was just a direct challenge to the crown, and by 1775, the city was under siege. It was the opening act of the American Revolutionary War.
This quote from the British general William Howe, it just says it all. It perfectly captures the shock and awe of what happened next. See, the siege of Boston had been a stalemate for months, until one absolutely incredible night in March of 1776.
So how in the world did they pull this off? It was a stunning display of pure grit and genius. You have George Washington taking command. Then a guy named Henry Knox leads this epic journey, dragging cannons 300 miles through the winter snow from Fort Ticonderoga. Then an engineer, Rufus Putnam, designs these portable fortifications they could throw up overnight. The British literally woke up the next morning, looked up at the high ground, and saw it lined with cannons they never even saw coming. They had absolutely no choice. They had to get out.
Okay, so after the Revolution, Boston had to reinvent itself all over again. Its glory days as a seaport started to fade, and a new age of industry began. The city became a manufacturing powerhouse, full of mills, factories, and a growing web of railroads.
And this, right here, this illustrates maybe the most mind-blowing change of all. To handle all this new growth, Boston didn't just expand, it physically grew. The city literally created new land, tripling its size from under 5 square miles to over 48. This wasn't conquest. This was construction on an epic scale, filling in marshes and tidal flats to build entire new neighborhoods like the Back Bay.
Now, a growing city needs people, and the world absolutely answered the call. The 19th century brought massive waves of immigration. The largest group, by a long shot, was the Irish, who were fleeing the Great Famine. But they were joined by Italians, Germans, Russian Jews, and so many others, each group bringing their own unique culture.
And this huge influx is what created the city of neighborhoods that Boston is famous for today. You got these distinct ethnic enclaves popping up, like the Italian North End and the Irish stronghold of South Boston. This demographic shift would completely change the city's culture and its politics, leading to powerful political dynasties like the Fitzgeralds and, of course, the Kennedys.
But as we know, no golden age lasts forever. As the 20th century rolled in, Boston faced yet another huge challenge. The very industries that had made the city so wealthy started to fail, and a long period of decline began to set in.
Seriously, by the mid-20th century, things were looking pretty grim.
The city's factories were old and obsolete. Businesses were packing up and moving to places with cheaper labor. For a while there, it really seemed like Boston's best days were long gone. Another reinvention was desperately needed.
And that reinvention came in three key parts. First, there were these controversial urban renewal projects that bulldozed entire neighborhoods, often displacing communities that had been there for generations. But more importantly, the city played its oldest and best card, its brainpower. World-class universities like Harvard and MIT, plus its top-tier hospitals, became the engines for a brand new economy, one built on technology, life sciences, and biotech.
So what does all this add up to? Well, it's a legacy of innovation that's just woven into the very fabric of the city. From those early Puritan foundations to its revolutionary fire and its modern-day tech boom, Boston has always been a city of firsts.
I mean, just look at this pattern. It spans nearly 350 years. The first public school, the first Americans to sail around the globe, the nation's very first subway system, the first community health center. This isn't just a random list of facts. It shows a city that seems hardwired to be a pioneer, to solve problems, and to lead the way.
From a simple vision on a tiny peninsula, a city grew through sheer will, redefined again and again by its people. In so many ways, Boston's story is the American story, just distilled down. And it's a story that is never, ever truly finished, which really just leaves us with one final thought. What will its next great reinvention be? If you enjoyed this journey through history, don't forget to like, subscribe, share this video, and comment your thoughts below.